Wait a second. Do you want your niece competing against my son? My son will dominate your niece. Do you want that? Yes or no?
I don't care.
Yes or no?
Care.
You don't care?
I don't
you don't
care.
care
Why
about your
don't you
niece?
care, Mike?
What happens when a simple yes or no question turns into a full-blown political showdown? That's exactly what happened on Piers Morgan's show, where Mike Nellis was repeatedly pressed on whether transgender athletes should compete in women's sports. And instead of giving a direct answer, he kept shifting the conversation toward local control, politics, and the economy. But the real issue here isn't just what Nellis believes, it's why he refused to answer the question directly, and whether Piers Morgan actually exposed a contradiction in his argument by comparing transgender athletes with athletes using performance-enhancing drugs. In this breakdown, we'll look past the shouting, the political talking points, and the viral moments to examine the central argument, the alleged double standard, and why this debate has become such a powerful wedge issue. If you want the full context and my analysis of what really happened, let's jump into the debate.
If you want to see what happens when someone gets completely exposed on live television, watch this. Mike Nellis thought he could talk his way around a simple question on Piers Morgan's show, but within 2 minutes, he trapped himself in his own logic. Watch this opening exchange and see if you catch where he made his first big mistake.
I want to ask you a specific question, because the one thing you didn't mention in the things that would be easy to just say no to, right, or agree with, you know, in this big Sophie Cunningham story, for example, she writes a ESPN feature saying she doesn't agree with allowing transgender girls and women to compete in women's sport. And all hell breaks loose with this. And I don't understand why. And perhaps you can explain to me what is wrong with what she said, because she's right.
Okay, I'll answer that, but I want to address the previous point here, because one of these things about even candidates like Trump vexes the Republican Party establishment. Now he is the Republican Party establishment, but vexed them at the time. He vexes the Democratic Party establishment, so does DSA. A big part of the reason that these candidates are rising and doing better is because the system isn't working for people, so they're willing to take bigger risks. Like a system that will elect Donald Trump, who I don't believe on any level is qualified to be president of the United States, who has already proven himself to be so corrupt even before his second term, is a system that's crying out for help. So the establishment in both political parties need to start offering and being able to deliver real solutions. Otherwise, they're going to keep getting their asses handed to them in these primaries. They just keep looking around and they choose to blame the voters. They choose to blame everybody else instead of looking in the mirror and figuring out what they're doing. Now, on the Sophie Cunningham stuff, I haven't read the op-ed that she put out. I'll tell you the same thing I've told you 1,000 times about how I feel about this issue. I think it should be up to local school districts. It should be up to local communities to figure out what's best for them. I simply do not believe the federal government should be telling people who should or shouldn't be playing women's volleyball. I just don't think that's the role of the federal government.
But what do you think?
I'm old enough. I see the two conservatives on the panel who are shaking their heads. I'm old enough to remember when they didn't believe in big government, when they thought that local communities should be making those decisions. Now you guys are like, well, the federal government should tell people to play women's basketball.
Wait a second.
Hang on. Wait. Everybody, wait a minute. Let me ask Mike a very simple question. Do you personally believe it is fair for transgender women to compete in women's sport? Yes or no?
I don't care. Same thing I've told you before. I simply don't care, and I want communities to figure it out. And what I care more about is like kids.
Do you not care about slavery?
Let me answer the goddamn question before you guys jump in.
Either?
I mean, slavery is not the same thing as transgender athletes. You look like a dipshit when you say stuff like that.
Okay, but you're acting like a coward. You're acting like a coward.
I'm not acting like a coward. I'm telling you I don't care about.
Do you have a daughter? Do you have a daughter?
No, I have a 7-year-old son, and I have a niece. Yeah, okay.
Okay, do you want your niece
I don't need a daughter to have an opinion on the issue.
Wait a second. Do you want your niece competing against my son? My son will dominate your niece. Do you want that? Yes or no?
I don't care.
Yes or no?
Care.
You don't care?
I don't care.
Why don't you care, Mike?
Why don't you care?
Why don't you care out of interest?
No, you're a coward.
Because here's what I care about, because I care about whether or not kids are safe. I care about what.
Let me ask Mike. Hang on. Let me ask Mike a question. Mike, another simple question. Mike, did you care when athletes were caught cheating with drugs that gave them performance enhancement? Did you care about that?
Like in the Olympics? Like, yeah, sure.
No? Yeah,
like in the Olympics.
You did care. Okay.
About, yeah,
so you do care.
Like Barry Bonds?
So just to be clear,
that's professional athletics.
you do. Hang on. So you do care when athletes have an unfair advantage. You care.
Here's the thing, Piers. Yeah, sure. But I want to point this out. You opened this segment by talking about how Republicans are going to go back to the well to talk about
Mike,
the same
you
stuff
either
that they're
care or
always
you
talking
don't about unfair
This is
advantage.
another one of those things that they do where it becomes a culture war issue that they can distract because they don't want to talk about the economy being a
It's
mess.
a very
They don't want to
simple
talk about the war.
question.
They want to talk about this culture war trivia shit that divides people instead of things that actually have an impact on people's lives.
Answer the question.
The truth is, Mike, hang on.
The answer.
No, the truth. Wait a minute, please. The truth is, Mike, what you've revealed is, I'm afraid, total hypocrisy. You care about an unfair advantage in the Olympics or Barry Bonds or whoever it may be, you know, Lance Armstrong. You care about that unfair advantage, but you don't care when a biological male who has indisputable physical advantages over a biological female is allowed to compete in women's
It's incredibly
sport.
different when we're talking about
hypocrisy.
Major League
And the
Baseball.
truth
We're
is,
talking about intramural volleyball for you know, like teenage
no, it's the
girls.
same principle.
It's not the same thing.
Same principle.
No.
This is not the most important issue in the country. You guys bring it up every single time I come on. Give me the same answer.
But you only care. But you only care when it's drugs. You don't care when it's the trans issue because you dare not speak your mind about that because you know it's unfair because you don't believe in unfair advantage.
And there it is. Piers laid out the double standard, plain and simple. If you care about fairness when it comes to steroids or doping, you can't suddenly pretend fairness doesn't matter here just because it's a touchy political topic. The moment you treat biological advantages as no big deal, the entire foundation of protected women's sports disappears. Clay Travis then steps in to highlight why this exact issue breaks people's trust so quickly. Watch what he says next.
Clay Travis, let me bring you in this because you posted an open challenge to the WNBA. He said, I want to have a boys' high school team versus the WNBA Las Vegas Aces. I'll put $10 million on the line. The boys are going to win. We're going to put it on pay-per-view. Now, obviously, you're right. Right? We know this because the women's soccer team, national women's soccer team, Megan Rapinoe, who wants to pack the women's team with trans women, only after she retired, I noticed she said that. But they got beaten by a Dallas, I think, under-15s team, about 7-1 or something, right? Obviously. Now, I don't say that because I want to diminish women's sport. I just think you've got to keep them apart for that reason. Men are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, they have bigger lung capacity. That is why in the Olympics, Mike, they separate the sexes. Right?
Which is
and if
fine.
they didn't,
that's
how
fine.
many
I'm talking
medals...
about the role of the federal government, what the government should be doing.
Yeah, but you
No, he
think
just
it's
asked
fine.
you your opinion.
You think the
it's
government
fine,
should be
but
telling people who can or cannot play
He
women's
just asked
volleyball?
you.
I think that's
Piers
weird, and I think it's a waste of everybody's time.
Here
is the talking.
Let me just hang on. I'm just making the point. That is why we separate the sexes to prevent
won't
unfair
answer his
advantages
question.
that you do care about most of the
I've
time.
answered the question
unless it's
every
trans
time.
women.
No, you didn't.
Clay Travis.
just don't like
I
the
do
answer.
think Mike's
Fine.
problem over this
You're a
is
coward.
indicative of the general problem
Okay, I don't
around
even
the
know who the
woke
hell you
left,
are.
right? They just can't say what is a basic fact.
Yes, 100%. And Piers, I'm going to have to jump out, so I don't want people to think I'm dodging this debate because I would love to do it. My radio show starts more in like 3 minutes. But here is the reality. Mike won't say it, and he's actually emblematic of many people on the left because if they say that men are not women, the entire trans house of cards collapses. There's a difference. When we all grew up, people dressed up as
new
drag
material,
show
or are we just
guys
playing
or
the hits from
gals,
2020?
right?
Be quiet.
They didn't argue that they were actually women. If you want to dress up as a man and pretend to be a woman, or you want to dress up as a woman and pretend to be a man, that's fine. That's your life. As soon as you enter into sport, you're requiring me to lie. And here is why this matters. They won't just say, let's end it, right? If you're playing 12U and a 16-year-old shows up, every parent knows that's unfair. I've coached every sport, my boys. If anybody shows up who's out of age, you would end it. This is table stakes. I think it also ties in here in a big way. Once you lie to me about this, I can't trust you on anything else, right? I can't trust you on tax policy. I can't trust you on Mideast because you've already lied to me about a basic biological fact in Piers. That's why I think it resonates. That's why Thanksgiving resonates. Because if you want to cancel Thanksgiving, I can't trust you on anything else. That's why these things matter just on a baseline level. They cut through the noise. That's why I put $10 million on the table, Piers. All these high school boys teams are reaching out to play. The WNBA won't respond. The Aces won't respond because they would get smoked. And this all started because WNBA coaches said they would welcome men identifying as women into the WNBA. I said, I want my own WNBA franchise, Piers. We're going to call it the Nashville Balls. Our slogan, one love, two balls, greatest sports dynasty of all time. Only trans players, men identifying as women. It would make the Jordan era dynasty
I think Mike should put 10 million on the women. I think Mike should put 10 million.
I don't have 10 million. I got to go. My
Mike,
show's starting right now. Pierce, love the show.
Okay,
Clay, on this one.
We're going to leave it. We're going to leave the whole debate there. Thank you, Clay. Thank you to all of us on my panel.
Thank you, guys.
Very quickly.
Yeah, just one final thought before we end this, if I'm even still on right now, is just I hope that everybody understands that what the conservatives are doing is using this as a wedge issue so they don't have to talk about the economy or the war. That's what they want. Same shit they did in 2024.
But you know what? You know what, Mike? This is the problem, though. All you have to do when people say, should we get rid of Thanksgiving, is no. When they say, should we get rid of the Pentagon, police, and prisons, you say no. When they say, should we let biological men compete in women's sport, you just say no. And when you don't say no to that, everyone thinks you're nuts. I've got to leave it there. Thank you all very much.
The government shouldn't be telling the leagues what to do. Like the government should tell the WNBA who can play women's basketball. Like that's ridiculous.
Do you think men should be competing against women?
Mike.
Yes or no?
Not in the WNBA.
I've got to leave it there, guys. Thank you all very much.
You're a coward.
So, what should we actually take away from this exchange? The most interesting part of this debate wasn't the volume of the arguments. It was the difficulty of getting a direct answer to a very specific question. Mike Nellis repeatedly argued that decisions about transgender participation in sports should be handled locally rather than by the federal government. That is a legitimate policy position in itself. But Piers Morgan wasn't asking who should regulate sports. He was asking whether Nellis personally believed the competition was fair. That distinction became the central weakness of the exchange. Piers's comparison with performance-enhancing drugs was designed to expose what he saw as an inconsistency. If competitive fairness matters when athletes gain an advantage through doping, why should physical differences be treated differently here? Nellis, meanwhile, argued that the issue was being weaponized as a culture war distraction from larger problems like the economy. And that's ultimately why this debate became so contentious. Both sides were answering different questions. One side was focused on fairness and biological differences in competition. The other was focused on government power and political priorities. Whether you think Piers exposed a genuine contradiction or pushed the issue too simplistically, one thing is clear. Refusing to give a straightforward answer only intensified the controversy. What's your take? Was Nellis making a legitimate argument about local control, or was he avoiding the central question? Let me know in the comments.